Forced to work from home by your employer? Laid off or feeling depressed at home? Do you want to make money working from anywhere? We'll show you how to do it from your couch. It's time for another episode of the Work From Home Show. Coming to you from their homes in Austin, Texas and Tampa, Florida, here are your hosts, Adam and Naresh.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Work From Home Show. Shout out to all our homies, homeboys, homegirls, home trans, all the work from homers out there. I'm Naresh Vissa. Today we have a good friend of mine. He is now a multiple #1 best-selling author. My company, Krish Publishing, helped publish his latest book, which has become his biggest success. In fact, I'll even say this book, we've done a lot of episodes on publishing, on self-publishing, on traditional publishing. This book has sold and gotten more publicity than any other book that I've been a part of, whether it's books that I've written, books that Krish Publishing, my company, has published. His book is called The AI Recruiter, Revolutionizing Hiring with Advanced GPT-Powered Prompts. It is super relevant because this whole idea, not of AI, but of ChatGPT, is incredibly new. It's just scratching the surface. And what makes the book interesting is he didn't exactly write the book. ChatGPT wrote the entire book. And if I'm not mistaken, it's something like 600 some odd pages. So Mike Wolford, thank you so much for joining us on the Work From Home Show.
Naresh, it's been too long, man. Thanks for having me.
It's been too long. And Mike and I, we go way back. I think like 7 years now or 8 years.
Yeah, you published my second book for me.
Yeah, I did that. And we spent a lot of fun times together. We've had a lot of fun nights when we were both single young men. That is true, which we're not, at least I'm not anymore. Still fun though. But the AI Recruiter, so we published the book and I went through it and I was like, I just have so many questions to ask of you. And I feel like our listeners too, this is the first time they're actually hearing, many of them, they're hearing about ChatGPT. So let's start with that. So let's start with what I said earlier, which is,
sure,
you got ChatGPT, if I'm not mistaken, to write this book for you?
Yeah, most of it. Inside of this particular book is the prompts that I used to create the content. So I wanted to be transparent because I figured there was value in the content itself, but also the process by which I got GPT to create the content for me, I thought would also be valuable. So in order to kind of show people how it's done, the book is laid out in such a way that all of the prompts that I use to create the content in the book are displayed. So you could copy paste. Now you won't get the exact same, outcome I did, but it'll be something similar if you were to copy paste and put it into like GPT-4 today.
So how long did it take you to quote unquote write this book?
Right. So it's a two-part answer. The first part was I had to learn how to use GPT to write. And it can do different types of writing. And so I had to first learn like what type of writing it can do, what kind of options it has, right? So there's things like voice and tone that are options for your writing. So you could say, make it altruistic tone in the voice of Yoda.
That's
for
good
example.
okay. That's because I did want to spend some time, I'll let you keep going, but on how to get, that's very specific to say
Right.
altruistic voice like your Yoda. So
Right.
you have to get that specific, the whole, because like I read bedtime stories to my son now using GPT, and I'm like, these stories kind of suck. Like they're lame and they're all like the same.
Right.
But you just have to get, if maybe tonight I'll tell my 3-year-old son a bedtime story in the voice of Yoda or something, like, it's a little more specific. So that's something I haven't done yet. But yeah, I'll let you finish.
And that was, to your point, right? Like I didn't even know it could do that. And I don't think most people do. And so the first part of like how long it took to write was first I had to figure out what it could do. And that's part of what I put in the book with the prompt cheat sheet is to kind of give you and people who read it an idea of what it's actually capable, what types of expertise it can draw on, what types of options you have, what types of writing you can get it to do for you, and what kinds of options are there for the writing that you want to do. How long do you want it to be? And what I've started to do is actually to create templates now for the different types of writing I want it to do because it can take about 4,000 characters of instructions. So first, I had to learn, and I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I tried on my own. I actually tried to write a book with it over the weekend about something I didn't know, just to see if I could learn how it worked and how to make it write a story, because it will forget at some point, and then it just kind of can go off, and it can write something that contradicts something it wrote before. So for novel writing, you've really got to learn how to shepherd it. But once I learned how to do that, once I understood and mastered the process from blank page to the copy I sent you and your team to be published was 2 weeks, just over 2 weeks.
Wow. As a writer myself who's written a 400 plus page book, it took me an entire year to do that, and it took you a weekend to do 650 something pages. That's
Yeah, it
pretty
was
awesome.
72,000 words or 74,000 words, I think is what we came out with. So depending on the format.
And what you wrote is super technical. And what you sent me, there was no editing. Usually we go over, okay, let's proofread, let's find errors. This was a no editing, no grammar mistakes, no spelling mistakes. Like it was perfect.
Yeah, that's annoying, right? As a writer, that's annoying. It gets it right the first time. It doesn't even need an editor. It's its own editor. And that to me was the real insight. And for people who want to get into this and who want to publish, then that's really the thing. The insight I came away with was this is the new Gutenberg press. It doesn't just publish books, it writes them. And, if you can learn how to tell it what to do in the right way. That's why prompt engineering is becoming a thing. If you can learn how to get it to not only do what you want it to, but do so creatively and effectively, then that's the real magic. And we're starting to see that. We're seeing level one was kind of everybody gets GPT. And the white paper I just read from the University of Pennsylvania was saying like their analysis was it's about a 15% productivity increase for people who just have access to it. But if you have access to software that's powered by GPT, that productivity increase goes from, increases from about 35 to 45% improvement with software powered by GPT-4. So what I expect to see is an AI boom of technology that sits on top of GPT-4 specifically for writing books, specifically for marketing, specifically for healthcare, specifically for learning how to fly a plane, like anything. This
Okay,
is the next.
I want to talk about that a little bit more because I work in tech. I consider myself pretty good and knowledgeable about tech. And people told me, like what you just brought up, healthcare. People told me, oh, GPT is creating financial, like people on Wall Street are using GPT to create financial models and accretion dilution. I mean, I used to spend weeks putting together these Excel spreadsheets
Right?
in GPT. And so, and what I want to do, you said that you spent some time studying about how this works. How long did you spend studying it? And I feel like this should be like a mandatory class to like third graders now.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe not third graders, but high school. That way you can at least learn something before getting this to do all your work for you.
Yeah. Well, Bill Gates, I think it was just Bill Gates. He said today or yesterday that in 18 months, AI will be a teacher. The AI will be teaching.
Hmm.
So yeah, they're absolutely going to learn from it, and it will be everywhere. It should be required. But to answer your question, I started paying attention last summer. I started watching and listening to someone named Dr. Alan Thompson down in Australia. He's the former head of Mensa International, and he was responsible for working with child prodigies. So, somebody who can read the newspaper at 1 and write a concerto at 3, this level of prodigy. So his experience is in intelligence. And he's a Harvard educated coach. He's a PhD. And he started doing research and publishing his interviews with the AI. And that's what really caught my attention was, first of all, it was much, much better than what I'd seen before, but it was also still, a little glitchy. And he would point it out. He was like not a hype man. You know what I mean? He was like, oh, that's not true, AI. Like that's wrong. Or man, you just keep being negative. Like you just can't have a positive, right? Like he called it out. Like he would say it and point out the shortcomings. He wasn't like, but he was also, when it gave an answer that was inspiring or insightful, he gave it credit for that. And so I felt like he, had the right educational and informational background to be a really good resource. And so I started to watch his videos and I started to watch what he was doing with the AI. And then he would explain, like, here's how I'm animating it. Here's where I'm getting the answers. And then he would pull up, here's what I put into GPT-4. Here's what the interface looks like. So it was really helpful. And then, there were other content creators on YouTube and in other places that had good, like, here's how you get it to do this, and here's how you get it to do that. And so I started to understand how capable it was becoming. But really, the revelation and the book wasn't possible until March when GPT-4 came out. When GPT-4 came out, it went from being able to write an article to being able to write a book. The difference in capability to me, the way I explain it as a writer, to us, to somebody else as a writer, is like GPT and ChatGPT and 3.5 Turbo are like a college student on Adderall. Like it's good. It's comprehensible. It's on point, but it's clearly written fast, right? And having GPT-4 is like having an English literature professor. It's so much better at writing. It's so much more capable as a model. And when it came out and I started to use it because I'd been using the previous models, it was a quicker ramp time for me. I actually collaborated with it to come up with the idea for the cheat sheet. I was like, I'm trying to teach people how to use you. What's a good idea? And they were like, cheat sheets are popular,
Yeah.
you know? So that was my other insight. With GPT-4, it also understands context. It understands what you mean, not just what you say.
Wow. That's awesome. So for our listeners who want to learn this, I know there are universities now offering certification programs. I'm pretty sure this is going to be implemented into artificial intelligence, computer science, engineering classes. I mean, it shouldn't even be there. It should also be in business schools. Really, any program should have like one mandatory class on how to implement GPT into the job function, whether it's journalism or finance or accounting or whatever. Like, can this thing do your taxes? Like that's
Not
one
yet.
question. Not yet. Okay. But my other question for you is, do you know if they're working on something where if I just like upload, like let's say I want to do if I just upload all my tax documents and boom, it'll just do it for you. Or if I upload a
Yeah.
big legal document, it'll go through and say, hey, this is a red flag on the legal, like you pay a lawyer $500 just to go over legal stuff.
Yeah.
Is it working on that type of functionalities?
It will. So the expert I just cited, Dr. Thompson, he uh, a year ago or so came out with his predictions of how the economic impact of artificial intelligence on the economy as a whole, and he rated it at $83 trillion over 9 years. And this is part of where it comes. Like GPT-4 passed the bar at 90%. So yeah, it's absolutely great at summarizing legal documents and writing them. And there absolutely will be a program that will do that for you. You'll log in. It'll say, "Hi, I'm your AI lawyer. Tell me what's wrong." And you'll describe the situation. You'll upload your photos, whatever videos you have. It'll say, "Okay, I've just reviewed your case and all relevant case law, and here's what I suggest." Yeah, absolutely, that's coming. The
That's
AI
insane.
psychiatrist is the one I'm excited about because I think we have a mental health crisis not only in this country but around the world, and we just don't have the resources or the trained medical professionals to support the needs of so many people. And with an AI, it'll be an app on your phone, and it'll be your AI psychiatrist, and it'll have read everything about psychology and psychiatry, every book in every language, and every scientific article that gets published and comes out, it'll instantly review, and it'll have access to all the experience of all, clinicians before it. Like this is why it's such a big deal. It's literally every field will be impacted and disrupted by this technology.
Well, what I love about the psychiatry thing, just medicine in general, it's not just access. It's even if you have access to, let's say, a psychiatrist, they might just be a pill pusher. They might just, a lot
Yeah,
of psychiatrists are, okay, put this 5-year-old kid on some medication that could end up screwing them over their entire lives. But now you have this non-human who, like you said, has went through all the research and data and what worked, what didn't work, and is giving you their best recommendation, which
yeah,
I trust more than a human, quite frankly. I just trust
right.
computers more than humans.
And it's going to be based, and so you'll have an integrated health system powered by AI, because the AI psychologist will then talk to your AI doctor, and right, like it's a whole chain of healthcare. And there'll be human nurses and human doctors to do the things that human nurses and human doctors can only do. But the rest of it will be managed by an artificial intelligence. And it'll be better, to your point, it'll be better healthcare, and it'll be available and accessible. Starlink is an important technology, and technologies like it that enable high speed internet access around the globe. That'll become a national security priority, because we can't live without our cell phones. And I remember a time without cell phones. Like AI is going to be the same thing.
Oh, wow.
3 years from now, 4 years from now, we'll be like, how in the world did I even exist without this thing?
Oh, wow. So you think it's going to be about 40? So you would say by 2030 at the latest, this is going to gain mass adoption, similar to what we
Yeah,
saw with the internet. Because people were saying blockchain in 2013, blockchain's going to catch on. This is the next big thing. And it still hasn't. We're 10 years in
right.
and it still hasn't. But this AI
It,
thing, it's not some fad. It's for real.
and here's why. Um, Language is the foundation of culture. And we're not the only animals that have culture, right? Orcas have culture. We look at, and we could see language in the mathematical patterns of their whistles. It follows the same pattern as our language. So we know that they have language. They don't have writing. Writing is civilization. Writing gives you civilization. That's literally the beginning of history. And so up until this point in history on this planet, there has only been one creature ever that could write, and that was us. And this now can write, and it's not a human. And so that's why it's changing civilization. Our entire civilization is based on writing, and being able to write to each other and communicate via writing is a uniquely human skill, and it's not anymore. And so in some ways, it's a limiting factor to our growth, because we can only talk so fast. And it's actually, compared to the volume of data we have access to, it's not fast enough. But with an AI, it can, a terabyte a second, no problem, right? It's a
Yeah.
matter of speed. And so if you can unlock the communication barrier, basically it's like a sound barrier for our own progress. We're only able to move so fast. But if you can remove that language barrier to progress,
Yeah.
you move a lot faster.
So going back to ChatGPT, you're saying if I put in a prompt, something like let's say I want to write a book,
Hmm.
and I put in a prompt saying write 50,000 words
Yeah.
about a specific topic. So your specialty is recruiting in software or software recruiting. So write 50,000 words about everything I need to know about recruiting in the software industry. You just
Yeah.
put that in as a prompt, and then two
No,
minutes
it's not there
later,
yet. It's not there yet. So the thing is, the limiting factor for an average user, so someone like me or you, is going to be the compute time that they're going to allow you to use in order to answer any specific question. So on the back end, they've set the dials to probably hundreds of words responses, because it costs them money. Um, honestly, this is a weakness of the models that we use now. It's not really good at word count because of the way the AI works. Word count is really hard for it. So you're not, if you tell it 50,000 words, it's really going to have a hard time with that because of the method that these models use. So that's why you haven't seen so many. You've seen a lot of articles, but you haven't seen a lot of books yet because the memory and the computing power, while it's been cheaper and the prices come down, it's not cheap enough yet. And I find it unlikely in the next year or two for it to become cheap enough to process a request like that. It's not that it couldn't handle that request if you put it through an API, but if you put it through like a regular prompt, you're going to hit a limit on the response from the computer. As a
Well,
matter of
I'm
fact,
sure they
it
could
cuts it off.
charge. I'm sure businesses would pay big
Yeah,
licensing fees, and individuals, like, I'm happy to pay $100 a month if it can do a lot of my work for me.
yeah. And companies are in line. There's a waiting line for access to the API for GPT-4. I know because I'm in it. So you're right. It is a huge demand, and their model is very reasonably priced, actually. You're right. They could charge a lot for it, but they're actually being very reasonable. And even the fairly reasonable prices that they were charging before have come down. So, it seems like their intention is to increase access. You could, if you were a company and you already had API access to their system, you could try and get it to write something like that. Um, I don't know how successful the model would be. Typically, it tops out at performance at about 600 to 800 words at a time. That's when it's doing its best writing. Anything beyond that, you could tell it almost feels like, as a writer, you'd appreciate it. It feels like filler. It feels like it's stalling.
Hmm.
Like instead of going from point A to point B like a montage scene would, where you do a cutaway as a writer, it describes them driving home, you know, like, yes, that gives you more words, but it doesn't really help move the story. So it's
Um,
kind of like that.
I think the biggest takeaway here, if people, when people listen to this, they're going to be like, wow, I want to learn this. So you said you just go on YouTube and type in learn
Yeah.
about
So
ChatGPT or learn
actually,
prompting.
I wouldn't do that now. That's how I did it, but I wouldn't do it now. I'd actually go into GPT-4 itself. First of all, pay for the version if you're gonna, it's $20 a month. Is worth it if you're going to invest in it to do something professionally, especially if you work from home, especially if you're going to have it write your emails or something. And then say, I'm new to GPT-4, I'm new to AI. I want to learn how to use this tool to write outreach emails to sales prospects, to write job descriptions for my job, to tell me, and if you're totally stuck, ask it a question that you never got an answer to when you were a kid. Like, why is the sky really blue? Why is grass actually green? Like ask it a basic question. And then once it explains it to you, then say, could you explain that to me as if you were a history professor? Or could you explain that to me as if you were Abraham Lincoln? Like have it explained through a different perspective. Can you give me the response as a poem? Right? Just experiment with the ways that it can give you an answer. So take one question that you've always wanted to know the answer to, and then once it answers, find out all the different possible ways it could answer that question. And then the second piece of advice would be that I've learned that's been very helpful to me in actually producing content with GPT-4 is create templates for specific types of writing. So a template for writing emails. I have a template for data analysis. I have a template for writing books, a chapter in a book. I have a template for writing an article now. So because each one of, a white paper, it can do any type of writing. And I create a template specifically. I use GPT-4 to work with me to specifically say, okay, I want to do this type of writing and I want to create a template for it. Can you, in table format, create template for me, um, you know, for writing emails, and it'll create a table for you with a template, and then you could copy paste that. Don't paste the formatting; it's terrible out of GPT-4, but you drop it into Google Docs or Word or anything like that, and there you go. You got a template. Save the template, fill out the template, copy paste, drop it into GPT-4, watch it go.
Wow. That's awesome. Anything else we should know or that you want to share with our listeners about AI or GPT-4?
Um, just that when you consider the risks and the benefits, um, there's already good information to see how this, like, get an idea of how this is going to play out, like what changes it will make to human society. Um, AlphaFold giving us 200 million protein structures in 3 dimensions is a tremendous aid in our fight against cancer that would not have been possible without artificial intelligence. Using the rates, the methods we were using, it would have taken us 800 million to a trillion years to do the same thing. So it's a huge medical breakthrough, and it's been used, and it's potentially a huge benefit to the people listening to this podcast. It could potentially be used to create medicine that saves your life. Um, Paralyzed people are walking again with it. Entertainment is being revolutionized. I mean, I think it will be I can see why the writers and the actors are striking. It will be an interesting time in entertainment because your video games are going to have non-playable characters that talk to you because the GPT will be behind it. It'll give, the programmers will give the NPC a backstory, and then it'll write the dialogue as you interact with it. So, have you ever wanted to go to dinner with Einstein? I mean, what would you talk about? You might get your chance to find out.
And before we sign off, because you are a recruiter, there's a lot of fear, and I don't know if this fear is justified or if there is going to be some type of jobs apocalypse.
Hmm.
We did not see it with the internet. We didn't see it with the printing press. Yes, a lot of the old jobs were gone, but new jobs were created. As a recruiter, do you think it's more important now that regardless of the job function, like you brought up, medicine, healthcare, accounting, finance, you name it, everyone is going to have to be able to use GPT in order to get employed and stay
Right.
employed?
Correct. And I think it also gives us an opportunity to organize as people and make demands of our government and our workplace, right? If this tool really does empower us to be 35%, 40% more productive, then we should see some of the benefit of that. The Industrial Revolution gave us the 5-day work week. I do not see why the AI revolution can't give us a 4-day work week. It's totally reasonable. And truly equitable. You're never going to get rich corporations and rich people to give you money. That's a nearly impossible task. But the one thing we all have the same amount of is time. And so if, the one way you can equally compensate everybody and equitably compensate everybody is to compensate them with time. So, don't just passively think about all the things that could go wrong with it. Yes, jobs will be displaced to your point, and a lot of them will, I think. Um, but there will be also new jobs, brand new jobs that we don't know yet. This is the challenge that comes with this technology. What we need to do is mitigate the in between. I'm working with, and I know other people in my field are working with putting together something for Congress to review on our suggestions. Now, I can't speak for the whole group, but myself, one of the things I think we need to do and push for from our government is, some sort of AI replacement tax where the unemployment tax that is paid by a company on a worker is still paid if they replace that worker with an AI. So that way we keep the social safety structure funded and in place while we make this transition for those workers who will be displaced. We're going to need a stronger safety net to make sure that the transition is easier for the society as a whole, but it's going to happen regardless.
I'm really not that concerned about that simply because, like I mentioned, with the internet, for example, with the I mean, technology is going to put people out of work, and we've made it through. Yes, people were displaced, but they'll eventually
Right.
figure it out. If they don't, their children figure it out. Um, Over the long haul, technology is a good thing. This seems like a great thing. I just can't wait to learn more about it because like I said, I use GPT. I tried using it for emails I send it. I just felt like it wasn't as good as
Hmm.
me writing the emails. Uh, I know people in finance who use it for their spreadsheets and for models for their financial modeling, and it's worked really well. And so, if you think that in another 4 years this thing is going to be equivalent to our cell phones, then wow, get in on this
Oh,
trend now, and you definitely wanna not just get in, but stay up to date and try to become an expert and apply it to whatever field of work you're in.
and because you're a writer, I'll give you an extra piece of advice here when it comes to getting GPT to write for you. Give GPT a couple samples of your writing and then tell it to imitate your voice, see how it does.
Mm.
I just actually had it publish an art. I just had an article published. I took 3 articles I'd published before, dropped them into GPT, and I said, based on these 3 articles, can you write a fourth one in the voice of the author? And bam. Now, I don't know that is exactly what I would have written, but I can understand like somebody else reading it would be like, that's probably Mike. So it wasn't perfect, but it was pretty good. And the more writing you give it, obviously, the better it gets. But that's the other thing. It can learn. You can teach it and you can program it. That's a little more advanced, but it's
Yeah,
certainly doable.
that's awesome. All right, Mike Wolford, thank you so much for joining us on the Work From Home show. Fascinating interview. I think our listeners learned a lot. If our listeners have any questions, how can they reach out to you? I wasn't sure. You can share a little bit just about where you work. We talked about
Sure,
your book, but if you want to share where you work, how people can reach out to you, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever, feel
sure.
free to right now.
I'm the director of analytics at Calero. We do labor market analytics, and I am now working on how we're going to handle AI and what we're going to do with it in as far as analytics goes. You can reach me on LinkedIn. It's Mike Wolford, and like I said, I'm the director of analytics at Claro, and I'm happy to connect there.
Very nice. To all our listeners, check us out at workfromhomeshow.com. That's www.workfromhomeshow.com. Get on our mailing list there. Check us out on social media. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on a few other platforms. If you have any questions, hello at workfromhomeshow.com is our email address. That's hello at workfromhomeshow.com. Get Mike's book. It's available on Amazon. If you just type in Michael Wolford, Wolford. That's Wolford. You can see all of Michael's books that are available on Amazon once again. And his latest book is on artificial intelligence. The title of that book,
The AI Recruiter.
The AI Recruiter. The AI Recruiter. One last question I have for you. It seems like Amazon and a lot of these platforms, Facebook, don't like AI. Like when we were running Amazon ads or whatever, they started out great, and then it seemed like they're trying to suppress a lot of this information on AI. Why is that?
It's not in their best, so they don't want to get flooded. So with these like 12,000 word books that are obviously written by AI, so and they have it's not in their best interest to allow that to happen to their platform. So they're scanning for AI generated content
Hmm.
and they're downranking it on purpose. You'd have to ask them why, what's their business case for that, but that's what they're doing.
Because we actually had to amend, we ran some Facebook ads for your book, and we had to amend it tremendously because they said that this book was discriminatory and racist. The word like black wasn't even in the book at all. So we had to really change a lot of things just to get an ad approved. And I brought it up to some people. I'll have to share it with you after. but maybe a lot of it has to do with the job displacements, the communities that are going to get hurt with the job that's seen as racist maybe or discriminatory. But hey,
Mm.
technology is technology. It's going to do its thing.
The thing is, it automates anything that you're already doing. So, yeah, like Amazon actually is a classic example. They were in the public. This has been reported. I'm not sharing anything at a turn here, but they had an AI running their evaluation for candidates, and they discovered it was discriminating against women because something like 20% of the engineers at Amazon are women. And so it said like they have a lower chance of being, successful here. And so it automated that bias. Was it on purpose? Like, no, that's probably a reflection of actually the demographics of the talent pool they're recruiting from, but they recognized what it was doing and shut it down. You can go astray with it just as fast as you can do good with it. And that's kind of the danger of why we need regulation right now.
Mike, thanks a lot. And to all our listeners, thanks once again. And until next week, keep on working from home.